What's up, guys? Friday evening here. I somehow deleted the other video. I don't know how I did it, but we got some pretty good responses off of it. Got a good many people signed up today, so that's a good thing. They realized that they need a little help. Um, what we're going to talk about tonight is basically I'm going to start off pretty close to the same thing as last night, but we're going to do a little test. So have your pen and a piece of paper pretty close to you. And you can write down the answers will be true, false, or you just don't know. Um, but at the end, I will answer the questions that I ask, and see how much your knowledge is about racing, because this is 3 days of school on a dirt track chassis. Period. I'm gonna start off just like I did last night, talking about Mark. He started teaching sometime around 84. It changed to Racewise in 2002. He teaches this school at Rocket. He teaches it at his place in Evansville, Indiana. He teaches it at Larry Shaw's place. And last year was his first year in the South. I got him talked into it, and we appreciate him coming down here because I felt like we needed some schooling. I attended his school many years ago and really helped my program and my brain a good bit. I'd read a lot of books, and I needed some help. I just didn't know it. And there's nobody that will not benefit from this class. It doesn't matter what experience level that you have. You will benefit from the class. I promise you that. He's taught the school to World 100 winners, names Josh Richards, Jared Landers, Brian Burkhofer. I mean, in the modified world, Kelly Shyrock. Lots of big names, and they've all benefited from it. I think it's a great thing for him to come down here and do this one more time this year. Next year we're going to do it at a different location. It's still going to be Racewise South, but it's going to be a different location. I'm going to be choosing a different place, and mainly because the local guys here are just not responding. I mean, we got guys coming from Oregon, we got guys coming from Washington, Texas, Louisiana, Arizona, and I don't think we have two people from the state of Alabama in it. It don't make a lot of sense to me, but you have the opportunity to get 3 days of dirt knowledge that you can carry with the rest of your life for the price of a drum of fuel. When your kids start racing, or your best friend's kids start racing, or anybody, you can help them, and you'll have the knowledge to help them. But I think people would rather spend $500 on tire dope than finish last. I don't know. Okay, we're going to start off with the test, and I see there's a lot of people that attended last year, watched the video yesterday, so I feel like they're going to watch it today, and see if you can answer the questions. You can go to racewise.net, and it's got the test on it. It's got the full explanation, but we're just going to start off tonight. I'm just going to ask the main questions, and then I'll go back and give you the answers. And just get you a pen and piece of paper and write them down, and we'll see how good your knowledge is about your car. Because you got to remember, these are only, I think there's 10 questions I'm going to ask, and you got 3 days of learning. So if you don't know these 10, you may have a little trouble with the 3 days. Okay, start off. Softening the right front spring helps the race car to turn when on the gas, because the softer spring causes extra chassis roll that increases the load and traction of the right front tire. Now you can answer this yes or true, false, or you don't know. Let's do it again. I'm going to ask the question again in case you didn't catch it. Softening the right front spring helps the race car to turn when on the throttle because the softer spring causes extra chassis roll that increases the load and traction on the right front tire. Is that true or false? Write it down on your piece of paper there. I'll give you the, I'm going to come back to it, and I'm going to give you the explanation. Question number 2. A tall coil spring helps to keep the chassis from lifting off the spring during weight transfer because a tall spring stores more energy than a short spring. A tall coil spring helps to keep the chassis from lifting off the spring during weight transfer because a tall spring stores more energy than a short spring. So what they're saying, 16 versus 18 versus 20. You know, if you got a 20-inch spring versus a 16, the height difference. And you can answer on your piece of paper, true, false, or you don't know. Question number 3. I will read them all twice, and so you can see them, or so you can hear them. Question number 3. The most important factor in the geometry of a front suspension is the location of the suspension's roll center as measured at ride height. The most important factor in the geometry of the front suspension is the location of the suspension's roll center as measured at ride height. Okay. True, false, not sure. If you don't know what roll center is, you probably don't know the answer to that one for sure. If you don't know anything about front end geometry, you're probably not going to know the answer to that one. But you can write in your paper, true, false, or not sure. And I'll come back to it shortly, and we'll give you an explanation. Question 4. It makes no difference to handling as to how a non-coilover front spring is installed in a lower control arm, as long as the spring is centered in the seat. All right, I'm going to read it again. It makes no difference to handling as to how a non-coilover front spring is installed into a lower control arm, as long as the spring is centered in the seat. They're referring to stock lowers, how the spring is set into the lower. As long as it's centered, there's no change in handling. Is that true, false, or you don't know? Question 5. Loose handling off the corner is usually due to improper chassis setup when the throttle is applied. Loose handling off corner is usually due to improper chassis setup when the throttle is applied. True, false, or not sure? Question 6. Do not ever increase stagger or right rear tire trail when racing on a slick racetrack. Do not ever increase stagger or right rear tire trail when racing on a slick racetrack. True, false, or not sure? It's a pretty good question there. I think you have to figure it out on your own, but I'll come back to it. Question 7. A stiffer shock helps to load and unload a tire quicker than a softer shock. A stiffer shock helps to load and unload a tire quicker than a soft shock. Write on your piece of paper there, true, false, or not sure. All right, number 8. I think there's 10. There's 10 questions, so we're on 8. Place ballast wherever convenient, as long as the desired weight percentages are attained. Place your ballast or your lead on your race car wherever it is convenient, as long as the desired weight percentages are correct to what you want. Is that true, false, or not sure? You write it down there. All right. Number 9. There's actually more than 10. We're going to skip 9, mainly because it's really long. It would take me a while to explain the answers to that one. So we're going to go to number 10. All suspension components should be mounted using stiff or solid type bushing. All suspension components should be mounted using stiff or solid type bushing. You can answer that one true, false, or not sure to number 10. I'm going to read it one more time. All suspension components should be mounted using stiff or solid type bushings. Okay. Number 11. Now this is a good one right here. This is kind of tricky, but let's see if you can catch it. The right front tire gains negative camber, which is, the right front tire gaining negative camber when the chassis rolls. Think about your right front tire when you go into the corner. The top of it rolls in. That's negative camber. So the question is, the right front tire gains negative camber when the chassis rolls. Is that true, false, or you're not sure? If you don't know what camber is, you're probably not going to get it right. You need to be in school. Let me see. Number 12. Most dirt tracks' front suspensions need from 3 to 4 degrees negative camber in the right front tire and 1.5 to 2.5 degrees positive camber in the left front tire. I'm going to read it again. Most dirt track front suspensions need from 3 to 4 degrees of negative camber in the right front tire and 1.5 to 2.5 degrees of positive camber in the left front tire. Is that true, false, or not sure? I mean, this is straight off the Racewise.net website. You can look it up. You can take the test yourself, but you need to answer that one true, false, or not sure. Okay? All right, we're going to go back to the beginning. The very first question for the folks that wrote it down and who answered. I can tell you this. If you answered anything but false on any of them questions, you got it wrong. If you answered not sure, you definitely got it wrong. But if you answered true, you missed it. You missed the boat. Now I'm going to explain to you what the answers are and how to get them. The first question was softening the right front spring helps the race car to turn when on the gas because the softer spring causes extra chassis roll that increases the load and the traction on the right front tire. It's false. And the reason it's false, a softer right front spring will actually cause less weight transfer. It will promote body roll because that spring gives more when the body rolls. But it's actually getting less weight. Okay. Think of what happens if you take the spring out, the ultimate spring. Let's just take the spring out of the right front. That's as soft as you're going to get. What's going to happen then? There's no weight on the right front. So, I mean, it can't help it turn, right? So if you answered true, you missed that one. If you answered true on any of them, you missed it. Here's another one. We'll go to number 2. Question 2. A tall coil spring helps to keep the chassis from lifting off the spring during weight transfer because a tall spring stores more energy than a short spring. That's also false. A lighter spring will store more energy, but the height don't have any difference on it. If you've got a 10-inch spring, say it's a 10-inch 100-pound spring. All right, you put 100 pounds on it, where does it go? It goes down 1 inch. Okay. You put 200 pounds on that 100-pound spring, it goes down 2 inches. Okay. Now we'll take a 50-pound spring that's 10 inches. and you add that 100 pounds on there, it goes down 2 inches instead of 1 inch with 100 pounds. So when the car comes up, you have more stored energy because it's a lighter spring, not the height. Height has nothing to do with it. I see a lot of modifieds losing their springs at the racetrack down here. This year they made a B class open wheel, and the springs have to be mounted solid on top of the rear end. Them guys dumped springs all year long because they were running, 200-pound, 12-inch spring or whatever on the left rear. As soon as that thing come up, it come out. Or they could have run a 100-pound left rear spring, and it would have followed the chassis to the top and stayed into the spring bucket. It has, plus at the top it would have had pressure on it, which would have given it a little bit of drive too. But anyway, taller versus shorter spring, that's definitely false on that question. But you can go to racewise.net and look at, there's a test up there on the top right. Click that test and you can go through all this yourself too. Let's go to number 3. The most important factor in the geometry of a front suspension is the location of the suspension's roll center measured at ride height. The most important factor in the geometry of a front suspension is the location of the suspension's roll center measured at ride height. It's false. I'd be more concerned with camber. See what the answer is here. Let me see what the... Yeah, correct. Dynamic camber with the top of the tires leaning towards the infield during cornering can greatly improve your side bite and the suspension's ability to turn the race car. Keep in mind that the most front suspensions tend to lose tire camber when the chassis rolls. I don't know if you was listening to the other question, but I just answered it for you. Okay, let's go to 4. It makes no difference to handling as to how a non-coilover spring is mounted into a lower control arm as long as the spring is centered in its seat. Let me grab a spring. Let me grab a spring. Hang on. Okay, what they're talking about is a lower control arm on a factory stock, street stock, anything that has a factory lower control arm. The spring sits into the spring seat. Okay? What the question was, it doesn't matter how it goes. There's a huge difference of how it goes. What you have active coils and non-active coils. You can see right here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 active coils. All right, you turn that spring around, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 active coils. When the spring is mashed at an angle, guess what? If you're on 6 active coils versus 5, you've got a different spring rate. So it does matter how this spring goes into that spring seat. Most people put a bolt in the bottom. What that bolt does is keep it from rotating. But if you don't have a bolt, or you can pretty much change your spring rate rotating that spring. You didn't hear that from me though. Next, we'll go on to the next question. That was false. Obviously, all of them are false. So if you answered true on any of the questions, you just got it wrong. Loose handling off the corner is usually due to improper chassis setup when the throttle is applied. Loose handling off the corner is usually due to improper chassis setup when the throttle is applied. It's false again. Loose handling doesn't have... off the corner on throttle, yeah, it makes a difference, but getting into the corner can affect your exit as well on throttle. If you're going in loose, you're going to stay loose, all the way off the corner. You're using your traction pie up, so that's false as well. Let's see what the answer is. Good handling begins at corner entry. If you trip at corner entry, you'll fall at corner exit. If the rear tires are still sliding when the driver applies the throttle, there will be no traction available to go forward, and the race car will be loose at corner exit. Like I said, racewise.net. This test is on there. It's up there in the top right. Let's click it. And the guys that are just joining in or been coming in and out, go to racewise.net, take the test up there and see how you do, and it gives a full explanation. I'm just trying to give you a good answer here. Number 6, do not ever increase stagger or right rear tire trail when racing on a slick racetrack. That's sort of been one of the biggest things that people really go the wrong way. When the track slicks down, they lose stagger because they think stagger goes with a muddy racetrack, and the car's got to rotate in the mud because it's got so much traction. But another thing stagger does, it adds resistance to the turning of the car. So let's see what the answer is to that one. I'll read the question one more time. Don't ever increase stagger or right rear tire trail when racing on a slick racetrack. It's false. We tend to make adjustments that add traction to the rear tires when the racetrack becomes slick. Often our adjustments prevent the race car from rolling freely. That's the resistance I'm talking about. Around the corner, so the driver must jerk the race car to make it turn. I mean, I've seen this a lot. I'm telling you, a lot of people do it. They start going down with stagger when the track dries out. Well, you're tightening up the race car, and you're making it where it doesn't roll free. So that's false. All right, we're going to go to number 7. It's a shock question. A stiffer shock helps to load and unload a tire quicker than a softer shock. A stiffer shock helps to load and unload a tire quicker than a softer shock. For some reason, people think the left rear needs to be so stiff that you can't push it in. You have to have a floor jack to put it on. I'll give you a little lesson right here, real quick. Pretty simple one. We're just going to use this shock for an example. Put it together here real fast. Let's just say this is a left rear, and I have customers that want this. They want the left rear so stiff that you can't push. This right here won't go in. Well, the only thing touching the racetrack is the tire. That tire is about that thick on the sidewall. That is your contact patch with the racetrack. Okay. The sidewall has to give even traction or whatever. The sidewall of the tire is a lot of your traction. Well, these shocks, when you hit a bump, the shock has to go in. And when it goes in, all right, you say you drive over a bump. All right, it goes in and it comes back out. Okay. On a left rear, if you make this shock so stiff that you can't push it in, when it goes in, all right, let's say you hit a 3-inch rise in the racetrack. So I'm gonna demonstrate a 3-inch rise here. There's your 3-inch. Okay. Well, this shock is super stiff. Let's say it's 1,500 pounds at 3 inches. It has no bleed, which is way up there. It's way up there. That's a big number. All right, when you hit that bump, this thing might go in this far. A 3-inch place. It might go in 1.5 inches. Well, the tire has to give the other 1.5 inches. Well, guess what? What happens now? This shock here goes up into the chassis. The chassis goes up. Well, now After you get over that 3-inch hump, there's a lot of racetrack there where you're trying to get traction. It's not even touching the ground because this thing is so stiff. It won't move. So left rear stiffness is not good. Let's go back to the question. A stiffer shock helps to load and unload a tire quicker than a soft shock. Why would we have easy up front shocks to promote drive if it wasn't? It's false. If you put, let's just use an example. Let's say you got both your front shocks. All right, we've got a pair of 300s on the front of the car. Just use an example. All right, 3 inches of travel, we know them things are 6. So you got 600 pounds sitting, or 500, 600, just use 600 pounds sitting on 300 pound shocks. Both sides. All right, that's going to be 9, 12, 1500. 1500 at 3 inches down. All right, let's say I put 1,500 pounds of rebound and no bleed in them shocks. Them shocks will go down and they will lock up. Now, when you pick up throttle, what's the front end doing? Always staying down. You steer it. Guess what? You got no weight promoting to the rear. You got to have something coming back. So that is definitely false. For these guys that's tying down the right front where you're just bottoming out and stuff, there you go. A stiffer shock helps to load and unload a tire quicker than a soft shock. False. False. Well, he's got unless the shock is extraordinarily stiff, this is not the case, which would be way stiff. We wouldn't, it'd be like a spring then, but a shock's not a spring, obviously. All right. Question 8, place balance wherever convenient as long as the desired weight percentages are attained. That's a big one. We discussed polar moment last night a little bit, just going through it. Place the lead wherever it's convenient to get your percentages. You know, your 52 left, 52 rear, or 54 rear, whatever you desire. You know, you place that lead wherever you want to. It's false. Your ballast needs to be centered in the car. As center as possible. It don't need to be mounted to the back bumper. So everybody that's watching that's got it mounted to the back bumper, please move it. It needs to be centered in the car, and you need to pay a lot of attention to the ballast on the race car. And think of an Indy car. Everything is right there in the center. The only thing they got sticking out the wheels is pretty much tethers. I mean, you see how fast them cars are, how fast they can corner, and they run upside down with aerodynamics. I mean, it's unbelievable what they can do, but everything is centered on them cars. There's a reason for it. All right. Number 9, I skipped number 9 because it's got a lot of explaining to do. You can go to racewise.net, take this test yourself. We're going to go to number 10. All suspension components should be mounted using stiff or solid type bushings. All suspension components should be mounted using stiff or solid type bushings. I'm going to give you a second to think about that. It's false. Like the rest of them, it's false. I'm gonna give you Mark's answer on this one. I don't think it gets any better than this. This statement holds true for most suspension components, but not for components that must twist in order to keep the suspension from binding. Leaf springs and factory-type rear trailing arms are examples of components that must twist in order to keep the suspension free. These components should be mounted using flexible type bushings. Your factory 4-link, leaf springs, both. You've got the new B modifieds. They have to have a solid link on the top. Just something to think about. I don't think I would mount it behind, you know. Put me a big rubber bushing, let that thing move. It doesn't say what it can be mounted to. It can be mounted to a bracket that's got a spring in it. It just says solid pull bar. So obviously that one was false. All right, the right front tire gains negative camber when the chassis rolls. The right front tire gains negative camber when the chassis rolls. Everybody's pretty much seen the right front tire late model. It's just like this. Top of it goes toward the infield. Bottom of it rolls out, or the lower control arm straightens out, rolls it out. But that's not what the question is asking is chassis roll. Okay? Find something to do an example. It's false, by the way. I think you already knew that. But your chassis, okay, let's do it like this. This is where your upper control arm is mounted. And let's do it like that. Upper control arm and your lower control arm. When that chassis rolls, what happens to them bolts? Bottom bolt goes this way. The top bolt goes this way. So it's not putting negative camber in it when the chassis rolls, it's putting positive. So it's actually tilting the top of the tire out. The more the body rolls, the more you have to adjust your camber to over adjust it, you know. There was a time several years ago when the chassis, they were toting the left front tire. You know, I know everybody remembers it. I guess it was 90s. 2000s, for sure, in the 2000s, early 2000s. Everybody toted the left front tire. But if you looked at the right front tire, that thing would have positive camber in it because the car was tilted up like this. Well, nobody over adjusted that right front. Now, late model guys, nowadays, when you go by that Longhorn or that Rocket or Very Right, whatever your choice of car is, it's already built into it. You don't have to worry about this. There's nothing to worry about. It's already there. But the factory stock, modifieds, street stock, it's a pretty big deal. Especially if you're really rolling that car. You know, your right front tire, sealing off your nose piece. These are big advantages. Okay, let's go a little further. We'll go to number 12. Most dirt track front suspensions need from 3 to 4 degrees of negative camber in the right front tire and 1.5 to 2.5 degrees of positive camber in the left front tire. Like the rest of them, it's false. Mainly, let's see what Mark's answer is. Yeah. While the ideal amount of camber will vary between front suspension layouts, most dirt track suspensions need at least 3 degrees of positive camber in the left front and at least 3.5 to 4.5 in the right front. At least. Okay. Go to racewise.net, take the test, test your knowledge, because that's just 12 questions, you know. This is a 3-day book. If you come to this school January 31st, February 1st, and 2nd, like I said, this will be the last one in Anniston in the south down here. Mark was gracious enough to come last year. We had a big crowd. This year, we got a good crowd. I guess it's probably as big as last year. But we don't have any local guys. None. These guys are coming from Oregon, Washington, Arizona, Texas, several from Mississippi. We don't have any Alabama guys, or I don't think we have maybe one or two Tennessee, one or two Georgia. I mean, I don't understand why you don't go. Um, why would you not want to learn? I mean, if you're gonna race, you need to go to school. I mean, think about everything in life. You wouldn't know how to drive a car down the road if somebody didn't teach you how to change a gear shifter, how to tie your shoes. 2 plus 2, you wouldn't know that unless a teacher taught you. And people come out here and they buy a race car and they go race. I guess they enjoy mid pack, backpack, the social gathering at the racetrack. But why you not go to school is beyond me. Because there's something for everybody in this school. This thing covers. I mean, you're talking 150 something pages that covers every part of a race car. Late models, street stock, modifieds, pull bars, fifth arms, J bars, how to drive, how to enter the corner, how to fix your corner entry, how to fix your corner exit, rubbers, stack springs, weight transfer, how to set your car up to know where your lead moves. I mean, if you think about lead, say your car weighs 2,300 pounds, or just, we'll use 2,500 pounds as a neutral point. That means that 25 pounds is 1% of your weight percentage. So everybody's worried about their 52 on the left and 54 rear, or 53 left, 53 rear. One piece of 23-pound lead, or 25-pound lead, 2,500-pound car is 1%. So if you move a 25-pound piece of lead from the front bumper to the back bumper, you've took a 1% off the front, and you've added 2% to the rear, basically, because you took off 1 on the front and added 1% in the rear, but you lost 1 in the front. So you can move 2%. You can go from 52% rear to 54 by moving a 25-pound piece of lead. And these guys have got 600 pounds of lead on their cars. Huge chunks of 100 pounds stuck all in the trunk. And, I mean, you can move that stuff to the center of the car. And there's a such thing as called polar moment. If basically if you laid 10 pounds on my arm right here, and then you laid 10 pounds on my fingers, which one can I move easier? Or definitely right here. So if you've got weight, the center of gravity on most race cars is 16 inches, I think, 16, 18. Think about all the lead that's below that or above it. You can move that piece of lead to 20 or 24. Man, you've got a huge leverage point to help that car get over. But guess what else? It's got to come back, because it all rotates basically around the center of gravity. Asphalt cars, they put them all in the bottom, trying to keep it below the center of gravity, keep it from rolling. Dirt cars are totally different. But if you mounted 300 pounds in the top of it, that 300 pounds is going to rock that car when he goes into the corner. But guess what else? It's not going to come back. It's going to want to stay. If you mount it down here at 16 inches, it'll get over and come back. That's just little things you'll learn in the school. Like I said, there's 3 days of a slideshow. Mark starts off with tires, weight transfer. There's nothing he don't cover. I mean, there's people spending up to thousands of dollars. Hey, this Longhorn is not very good, so I'm gonna go buy this brand, or I'm gonna go buy this brand or whatever in the late model world, and it's not the car. It's just a piece of metal. You change the geometry of it. It's all physics. I don't know how many of you guys had physics in school when you was in high school or college or whatever, but that's all a race car is physics. It's got 3 basic motions. It's got the forward, motion when you're on deceleration. It's got the front to the rear. And during acceleration, when you enter the corner, it's left to right. Well, obviously, you got 4 tires touching the ground. If you go into the corner on deceleration and it wants to go to the right, and more like it, your right front tire is outstopping your left front tire. Well, how do you fix that? It's for the school. I can tell you can add spring to the left front and fix your corner entry. Because of what happens is the heavier spring always gets the weight. So if say you got a 400 on the left front, you're free getting in the corner. If you go to a 450 on the left front, guess what? It's going to stick a little harder. But I'm not going to explain why. I'm going to save that for the school, for the guys that joins up. It's $3.99 a person. Like I said, this is the last one in Anniston. You can call me and get signed up, 452-9390, 256-452-9390. If you have any questions, you can call me. I'll try not to delete this video. We had a lot of responses yesterday. Hopefully these questions tonight will open your eyes to what you actually know about the dirt racing, because there's a lot to them. But like I said before, you wouldn't know how to tie your shoes if somebody didn't show you. I know we've all read books. I do. I read books all the time. I've got 60, 70, 80 books over there that I've read. And you can pretty much throw them books away if you go to this school. You're going to learn everything you need to know. If you go into this school with an open mind and you can, figure out, how do I explain that? Just say you're going over with an open mind, okay? When he gets done with this school, you'll know every component of your race car, how it reacts, the adjustments that you make, what they do to the race car, how the race car is going to react to the adjustments, so you can make the right adjustment at the right time. Because, there's probably 4 adjustments for every situation, but 3 of them 4 are probably are going to hurt you somewhere on the racetrack, where 1 of them might not, or you might can stand a little bit here and not here. That's what you learn. You learn how the adjustments work, what they do, terminology of the race car. You learn all of that. It's a lot of information. But I promise you, when you leave this school, you won't have to ask anybody any questions. You'll be able to figure out your race car. Just call me if you want to come. Gotta get signed up pretty early. 256-452-9390. Go to racewise.net. Take the test. The only thing you need to sign up with me is a debit card, credit card, and the expiration date. We'll feed you for 3 days. We'll have a Saturday night special. I can't say what the Saturday night special is going to be, but I got a feeling it's going to be on aerodynamics. Mark's done a lot of aerodynamic testing, and he's probably going to share some secrets of what he found in that wind tunnel. So, join us January 31st, 1st, and 2nd, Anniston, Alabama, Racewise. Go to racewise.net, take the test, or call me and get signed up, 256-452-9390. Appreciate it, guys. I'm going to get off here.